what's going on with Daniel Ricciardo at Renault? This was the surprise move of the driver market over the winter, and expectations were high both from the team and the driver. But so far, it's been quite difficult, and I've got Ed Straw and Ben Anderson here to try and dissect how things have started for Ricciardo at Renault. So Ed, just bring us up to speed. How's it going so far for Ricciardo? Because it's probably fair to say that it's not really matching expectations in this early stage.
No, very much not. He's had 2 retirements and he's not made Q3 yet, so it's not been great. Obviously in Australia he pulled onto the grass at the start to try and make up some ground at the start and hit that gutter, and that damaged the front wing, and then later towards the end of the race they pulled his car out, and then he was hanging on to 10th on a one-stopper in Bahrain when just the MG UK gave up on him, power off out the car. So it's been tough for Ricciardo. I would argue it's that the kind of reality is set in about how long a task it's going to be to get Renault into a position where it can challenge. So he's gone from a kind of position where the grass is always greener and he's moved, and now he's living that new team minute by minute.
And we obviously mentioned there that the 2 retirements, the Australia one, unfortunate, although of course it's a risk to put yourself in that position where you might hit a massive gutter, and then nothing he could do about the failure in Bahrain. But I think what's more important is the fact that we haven't necessarily seen a huge turn of speed or a driver that looks at one with the car. So what's going on there? Yeah,
I think setting aside the detail of the 2 weekends, that's kind of lost in the noise. But what's more concerning is that Ricciardo isn't getting the best out of the car. He's probably, if you look at the underlying pace, he's probably 2 or 3 tenths slower at peak pace than Hulkenberg. That was distorted in Bahrain because they both had engine mapping problems in qualifying, but Hulkenberg had an engine mapping problem and another mechanical problem that put him out in Q1. So that flattered Ricciardo a bit, and then Hulkenberg drove a fantastic race. He was running 6th when he retired about 50 metres after Ricciardo did. I think the fundamental reason is he's moved from a Red Bull that's an outstanding car, even when the engine package hasn't been great. It's a great car. Certainly last year you could really carry the speed into the corner. He's a driver who likes the nice stable rear, so he can carry that speed into apex, and he wants the downforce so the car grips, so it's not out of shape, so he can get on the power and get the exit speed. Now at the moment, he was talking about this in Bahrain, he's trying to carry that speed into the corner, the rear's not quite there, and then it's just killing him sort of mid-corner and to exit in terms of momentum. And he needs to work on dialing out that this is what a car should do, and dialing into what a limited car can do. He's driven bad Formula 1 cars before. The HRT he made his debut in is as uncompetitive it's as uncompetitive as they come in the modern era. The Toro Rosso he was in was a marginal points car, though it had some good days and some bad days. But what he's doing is stepping back. And
that was a long time ago as well.
Well,
wasn't
exactly.
He's been in good F1 cars pretty much since 2014.
Exactly. But he mentioned, because I asked him about the thing of driving faster than the car is. And he said, well, yeah, it is a little bit different when you step back. You know, Charles Leclerc's jumped into a Ferrari and is probably thinking, brilliant, because it's just got more of everything compared to Sauber, more grip, more downforce, everything. You know, it's more stability, better aero balance. Ricciardo's taken a step back, which is more unusual. So I think it's surprised him how long it's taking him to adapt to that. He said that he knew, you know, he went into it with his eyes open, but he did sort of think, well, in your mind's eye, you think you jump in the car and everything's great and you're beating Hulkenberg, or at least as quick as him, and you're the kind of main man there, which is what he wants to be. But he's not, and that's why they decided to change things around. He wasn't originally going to do Bahrain test, but he has done a day there, and hopefully that'll have given him the chance to work on it with his engineer, work on his driving, and just recalibrate. I've got no doubt that he will. He's an intelligent driver. He's a very, very good driver. So I think that's just going to be a matter of time. The bigger question, I guess, is that the wider problems that they've had 4 qualifying attempts and 3 of them have been blighted by car problems over the 2 races for the 2 drivers, and the unreliability and the overall pace, because it needs to be at the front of the midfield, and it's not.
Ben, is there perhaps an element of, even if we assume that Ricciardo will get it right, is there an element of maybe people being more surprised because they might have underestimated Hulkenberg a little bit?
Yeah, it's very easy to underestimate Hulkenberg because he has this record for a number of starts without a podium finish. Has come close to racing for top teams in the past, and for whatever reason it hasn't come together. You know, there's some doubts about his work ethic and whether he's the right character to build a team around, but he's gone to Renault, I guess, almost as a last chance saloon. You know, it's a team on the up. He thinks, well, I'm not going to get in at one of the other manufacturer teams, so I go here, and if it comes together, then I can take my chance. And now Ricciardo fancies a bit of that. but he's 2 years behind Hulkenberg in terms of understanding the team, understanding the car limitations, some of which transfer through the seasons, as Ed explained. I don't think Ricciardo's unaware of how good Hulkenberg is. In his interview with F1 Racing magazine for April's edition, this one right there, as you can see, he talks about Hulkenberg and says, look, I know he's much better than his results look, but it's just an added pressure, isn't it, when you haven't started as smoothly as you hope, when the car's not quite doing what you expect, maybe when your expectations are slightly out of kilter with where the team is at. The last thing you need is your teammate being 2 or 3 tenths quicker than you in all conditions. But Ricciardo's gone in there with the right mindset. He's not expecting Renault to be turning up trees immediately. He's saying if we can start getting podiums in 2020 and then look beyond that once the rules change, then we'll be in business. But the first thing he has to do is take care of business, and at the moment he's not quite doing that. I think he's getting a window into what it was like for his former teammate Sebastian Vettel at Red Bull when they were teammates together in 2014. Ed, you mentioned how Ricciardo's progressed through his career and now he's taking a step back into less competitive machinery. Well, effectively that's what Vettel did in 14, albeit in the same team as before, because Red Bull went from having a sequence of trend-setting, championship-winning cars to one that was lacking in downforce, not competitive, and Vettel took all year really to get his head around that car. Only really in the kind of later races, I'm thinking Suzuka in the wet, did he start really performing at the level we expected. So it could take as long as that for Ricciardo to get his head around this new Renault.
And I think as well, the whole point about he goes into it with his eyes open, but now it's a long way away, isn't it? It's really easy when you're in. He wants to leave Red Bull. I don't think it's a bad decision for him personally to leave Red Bull. I think he needs to get out of that environment.
Well, he had enough of Formula One, didn't he?
Yeah,
he said in the interview.
I think he just needed to do that.
Yeah.
But you can sit there and dispassionately say, well, I'll do a few years of work and then we'll get to the point where we're winning. But right now it's probably like it's January and you're a kid waiting for Christmas. It just seems like it's never going to come, and you've actually got to go through all those steps. It's easy to kind of intellectually say, yeah, we'll do that, but when you're going through it, it's tough. He'll get on top of it. He's not going to give up or anything. But I think it's just you get into that trudge. It's a long journey they're on, and they're in the early bits where you're looking at the amount of miles to go and you're thinking, oh, this is going to take forever.
It'd be really interesting to compare Renault versus Red Bull Honda this season, because it seems like both manufacturers have done a good job on the engine. Red Bull's chassis isn't quite working as it should, and there's a feeling that the Renault car is actually quite decent and has a lot of pace in it, certainly from the midfield team point of view, but they just don't seem to quite have the operational aspects nailed down. And Ricciardo says that he thinks Renault will win in Formula One quicker than Honda will, and that seems like an extraordinary claim considering the strength of Red Bull as a team.
That right now.
But I guess you just never know. You never know when a team hits a problem that they can't solve, and we didn't expect, certainly even after Melbourne when Verstappen was on the podium, that Red Bull would suddenly hit this divot, if you like, in Bahrain. So it's not all rosy there either. So you look at the situation and say, well, Ricciardo's made a mistake leaving Red Bull to go to Renault, but at the moment you'd say, well, all bets are off, aren't they?
Yeah, I think from a personal perspective, I don't think it's a mistake for him, but it's just the hard work begins now. Renault needs, and that this has an impact on all manner of future things, the budget, the funding, etc. Renault needs to be, it can be fourth in the constructors again, that's fine, but it needs to be a better fourth. Yeah. And right now, although I think that Renault on underlying pace is a Q3 car, which it actually hasn't in terms of the results, they need to be at the front, ahead of Haas, and ideally kind of on their own, striking out into that no man's land. That could still happen as they go on this season. But, one thing leads to another, so they need to make that progress. And first and foremost, start nailing those Q3s, get the results, and be there 7th, 8th consistently. And
right now, the fact is that even if the car is quite good, there isn't an indication that they are going to make a break from the midfield this year. Haas looked very good in particular, but the midfield itself is very close. Renault talked an excellent game last year about his future prospects, and if anything, that's probably one of the reasons Ricciardo was swayed to go there if he was looking for his way out of Red Bull. Is what we're seeing so far suggesting that maybe Renault talked too good a game last year, and has Ricciardo maybe fallen for the trap that we've seen in F1 plenty of times from Renault, that they do talk themselves up a lot?
Yeah, maybe. I think probably the overriding aspects for Ricciardo are he was fed up with Formula One last year. He almost walked away from Formula One entirely. I think after that run of retirements through Austin and Mexico, I think you saw him in the paddock, didn't you, saying that we'll see you in Barcelona winter testing next year. He signed off.
Really
I'm not even going to do the last 2 races, but he said that actually he was thinking of not coming back at all. So however good Red Bull are or might be in the future, he's not happy, and anyone who's not happy isn't going to perform to their best. And I think when you've got a manufacturer team, okay, you don't know where they're at. Ferrari, Mercedes have always talked up as options for Ricciardo. It never really materialised. It was more talk than anything concrete. So Renault are the only other option if you want to get out that have the infrastructure or potentially the investment and the ambition to get where you want. They're offering him big money to go. So essentially he can solve 2 big things. I can change my environment, rediscover my happiness in another Formula One, and I can get paid a massive wedge for doing it. Everything else is kind of secondary when he knows what he's walking into. It's not like Cyril Abiteboul has said to Dan, we're going to win races next year, here's your money, we're going to be, pushing the top 3 teams by the end of the season and fighting for the championship the year after. He's going into this with his eyes wide open. I think the problem is that he hasn't quite yet got his head around just how much a drop it is going from a top team to a midfield team.